Hi everyone, it's Megan from SMB TV, and today as part of our COVID series we're interviewing Lyndal Box from LB Learning Solutions. Lyndal's based in Geelong and does a range of training activities for business, government and not-for-profit. Hi Lyndal, and thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome, Megan. Thank you.
Could you give us some of your background and what got you started with LB Learning?
Sure. Quite a while ago, I did my university degree at University of Melbourne in teaching. So I was a teacher for 10 years following that, and had a lot of great experiences during those 10 years and some challenging ones, because during that time we had a lot of students who were integrating into mainstream education that had come from previously being in disability support organisations. So it was a really interesting time to see how education adapted and what things we needed to do to make sure that we were meeting the needs of everyone. So I did that for 10 years, and then for the last 15 years I've been working in adult education, lots of different organisations ranging from not-for-profit through to businesses and state and federal government. And during that time, again, there's been an evolution in the way we deliver learning and education, and lots of different needs that's seen us, what I think, make wonderful change into performance-based learning and things that are really focused on what users need. So my particular area of interest being disability, and having worked for the NDIS for a time and for GenU, who are not-for-profit members of GROW, in both organisations, we were acutely aware of how some of our users, particularly those who use assistive technology, weren't able to access the things that they needed to access. And I could see a huge gap in the learning space. So a lot of people are doing wonderful, innovative things in learning. They're doing digitally creative things, but sometimes they're completely missing the mark when it comes to meeting the needs of everyone, and particularly those who use assistive technology. So that's where I decided to start my own business. I thought, here's an opportunity for me to do what I'm really passionate about, and to really explore what the latest knowledge is around accessibility and digital accessibility for learning. And my aim with the business is to support organisations to achieve 100% accessibility for the learning that they produce.
Wow. So it's just like this perfect marriage of your background in education, all different types, and then the disability, and like you actually worked with people, plus you worked within organisations that supported it. So it really came together really nicely.
Yeah, it's almost like, why didn't I do this a long time ago? But I guess all those experiences come together to make it more sensible, doesn't it? It needed to happen, and that was where I needed to be.
So just talk to us through, you see, you've got the background, you see the gap in the market. How long and what was your planning process, or did you just dive right in between being employed to saying, hang on, I can meet this need? How did that kind of transition?
I had a lot of thinking to do. So I decided to work part-time as an employee and to start my business only on 1 or 2 days a week. And I did that for a while. I started in 2018, so the business is fairly new. But for a time, and for about 10 months, I worked as an employee as well, while I established and learned some things about what it means to run a business, because as anyone will appreciate, if you've been an employee your whole life, running a business has a lot of new things that you need to take under your wing. So I got a lot of advice. I got a lot of really good support through the small business networks and through the Geelong Council, things that they offer. And I went along to everything that I could and learned as much as I could.
Brilliant.
And then I found myself in a position where I was ready to break free and go full time with my business.
So that was Sorry, it was when? Sorry?
That was in the middle of 2019.
Okay. So the organisations that you mentioned that you'd worked for, were they some of your first clients, or through that network? How did you get your first clients?
No, and of all things, my first clients came through unknown sources through LinkedIn.
There you go.
And
That's brilliant.
my very first one was just a random phone call from someone in Sydney that I'd never met before. And they said, can you help us with this government contract we've got? We need to make accessible e-learning, and we know how to make e-learning, but we don't know how to make it accessible.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, and that was a wonderful job to assist with, because there was some education of the staff who were working on the programs, as well as delivering the e-learning that they needed for that government job.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. So how did you said that you had a lot of advice and support. So did that help you work out how to cost jobs? Because you've got the practical side as well as the part that you're passionate about. How did you go working through those issues?
I guess I've been a bit lucky in that the roles that I'd been in previously as an employee had given me some visibility of what the current market was.
Okay.
So
excellent.
I knew what was reasonable and what was outrageous, and I'd seen all of the range before. But I also made a point of working and meeting up with a lady who is a fellow business owner. She's like me, does it on her own, and she does coaching. So she's a business coach, and so our businesses are not quite the same, but very similar in the way we offer the services. So we talk a lot. We still do. We meet up every fortnight for a chat, and we share our learnings all the time. So
Brilliant.
She was really generous with me in sharing, her experiences with negotiating contracts and what's a reasonable rate and how to go about doing that. And I learned a lot from that experience.
Oh, that's fabulous. I always say, if you can it doesn't have to be someone in your niche. Just speaking to other business owners, you can just gauge so much from them. You can just, people who've been there and done that. It's brilliant.
We call each other accountability buddies.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is. We make ourselves action items and everything. We hold ourselves accountable, but we just keep pushing each other to, try new things and develop. And it's a relationship that I can see lasting a long time.
No, that's perfect. You're really fortunate. All right. So take me back. Well, you started in the middle full time. So less than a year ago. What was business life like up until, I guess, March this year?
Oh, wow. I was building my reputation and brand, and developing my networks, and really finding that there was interest in what I was doing at a national level. I hadn't sort of imagined that I would have clients more in New South Wales than in Victoria.
Fabulous.
But all of that was just growing, and my reputation was starting to grow. And leading up to March this year, I was working on a presentation for Geelong Design Week. And for Geelong Design Week, I was collaborating with some local business owners who are great friends of mine, Tim Lucas and Dr. Diane Ashworth. And both of them are as passionate as me about accessibility. So we had developed a free workshop that we were going to deliver as part of Geelong Design Week, with spin-off workshops afterwards to support people in business to develop accessible documents and to make accessible learning.
Yep,
so that's where we were heading with, all of the business stuff was ticking along, and that was starting to really grow. We had a lot of people registered for that workshop. And
that was obviously going to be live or face-to-face?
It was face-to-face at the Geelong Library. So that was on the 20th of March. It was scheduled for.
Okay.
And you can see where this is heading.
Yeah.
But in the few days leading up to that, all of the restrictions started to come into play. And so we realised, with only days to spare, that everything was likely to be cancelled, and we needed to rethink what we were doing. So I think it was a day before Geelong Council announced that everything for that event, all the other events weren't going to go ahead. We'd already started to pivot and had started to look at setting up a webinar instead, which we did, and we ran it as a webinar. But of course, that's, a completely different means of presentation. Yep. It was a little bit challenging because Dr. Diane Ashworth is blind, so we had to figure out ways of making sure that the technology was accessible for her and how we could deliver it in a way that it would still present effectively.
Yeah.
But we did that, and then afterwards, I guess all of those face-to-face workshops that we planned to do, they had to be cancelled. The venue was no longer available. There were a lot of, concerns about people not wanting to do that as well. That everyone was starting to go into a bit of a shutdown mode in terms of what they were prepared to do.
It was the shock phase.
Survival. Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, I realised within those next couple of days that the work that I'd been negotiating contracts for, everything started to go very quiet. So I made a decision very quickly to call my previous employer, Genu, because I knew they had the majority of their clients were learners who were going to face-to-face training. And I knew that they would have to pivot their business really fast to make it digitally accessible.
Gosh, yeah.
So within 10 days, I was back working for them part-time as an employee, which has helped to give me some financial security.
It's given you a buffer, yep.
Yeah, and also huge interest and development for me in the scale of what's going on for them. So, everything nationally that they were delivering was based on the brand and reputation for them being face-to-face and giving a personalised service.
Well, yeah, okay.
And now it has to change.
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress for them, but it's been really great for me. It's been a win-win.
Oh, that's good. And I guess where once there was that expectation, there's also now the understanding that it can't be face-to-face at the moment, and not sure when that will be fully okay. So I guess there's some forgiveness, I think. What I've found, there's some people supporting people because they know it's not you just trying to change things for the sake of it. So I don't know, you can answer it. Have the clients been okay because they still need the training? Have they been okay to adapt to the new version?
Yeah, absolutely they have. And I think that really surprised everybody. And not that they expected people to be averse, but I think, we just didn't know what would happen.
Yeah.
But the uptake's been incredible, and the style of delivery of online sessions has been, they haven't had any issues at all.
That's brilliant.
There are some things that you just can't assess unless you see it.
Okay.
And that makes it challenging when, a lot of the sessions are delivered via Zoom or, it's just a different way of things to work around the practical components. But that's all happening, and it just takes time to figure out each of those things.
So what would be an example of that?
Personally, I'm not involved in this, but I know there's been a lot of discussions about what to do with the practical components for CPR. So, So, a great example of that is that, you have to be able to demonstrate it. And if you can't show that and you haven't got a mannequin in your house, it's a little bit tricky. So, there's lots of things that are being discussed about how to do that. And I'm not 100% sure where that's heading at the moment, but some of those things need to be on hold and redesigned.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's funny. Yeah, it wasn't even something I would think about, but once you say it, you're like, oh my goodness, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting. So how do you see you transitioning, it's so unknown. I realise that's an open-ended question, but how do you see yourself transitioning as the economy kind of tries to go back to normal, whatever the new normal will be?
I absolutely see now that people have become more aware of the needs for digital accessibility. So there's right now there are people who need some help and support, and I'm working part-time with Genu, but in my business I'm picking up some extra work already with people who have previously been content with what they've delivered, and now realising that, hang on a minute, there's a market out there. There's actually a whole group of people, and ethically we'd like to get in touch with them too, but they miss out when we don't design things for them.
Yep.
So, it's never intentional, but just by design, even a Word document, a PDF, an e-learning, the way they're put together can actually block someone out, can create keyboard traps, and it can present somebody from accessing or making a payment or anything if it's not designed properly. So, just people are realising that, and they're needing support and helping them to realise how to achieve that accessibility so that they reach their whole market. So I can see my business as being perhaps not less in the space of learning, because I think it'll always be learning based, but I'm seeing the need in supporting people more in sort of maybe a masterclass or a one-on-one style of support to help them get the skills together so that they can actually create the documents, the resources that they need that are going to meet everyone's needs.
Oh, that's really brilliant. Just back on when you had to pivot really quickly with your two colleagues, what was the response? How did the participants give you any feedback?
They gave us overwhelmingly good feedback, and I think you probably were right when you said that everybody was kind at the start, because honestly we'd developed the whole thing to be a face-to-face session, and we had to quickly think, well, hang on, we were going to ask everyone to stand up if they wore glasses, or we were going to, how do we do that? So, we quickly threw some polls together, and we, quickly figured out how to get live captioning, albeit not quite 100% accurate, which we would have liked if we had more time, but we figured out how to do live captioning, and we did things very last minute. And the response was terrific, because I guess people realised the effort and how
quickly you had to do it. Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome. All right, so this is a question that I've asked everybody. If somebody came and asked you for some advice about starting their own business, what would that be?
Your network is really important.
Okay.
And I can say this from the experience of somebody who's doing it on their own, that you never do it on your own, that there are people who you need to rely on, and you can't know everything. And it's okay, and it's absolutely imperative that you rely on other people to do the things that you're just not skilled in.
Yeah.
So, the network might include IT support. It might include somebody who has financial nous. It might be your accountant and your legal team who advise you on contracts, or whatever it might be. But it's not something to do on your own, is my advice.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Lyndal. I'm really grateful. I will put your contact details, like your website and social media accounts at the end of this video, so people can have a look. But again, thank you. It's a really fascinating business. I really I've had training companies, so I really appreciate the amount of effort that you must put in, and to pivot that quickly, my head was spinning, because I know I integrated to a web-based training version a few years ago, but that was into I transitioned. I didn't have to do it in one day. So I completely appreciate what that must have been like.
Yeah, thanks.